Ramia, and in our last lesson, we were speaking about the chapter of Tayammum, and we are still in the chapter of Tayammum. And the last thing we were mentioning about the integrals, of Tayammum. So let us do a bit of revision before we continue. So this is anywhere basically we stop in our last lesson. Last lesson we spoke about intention, how we need to intend when performing tayammum, and I mentioned there are 3 degrees of intention. Number 1, when you are praying the fard prayers. Number 2 is the sunnah prayers, and number 3 sujud syukur or sujud tilawah. So if you make any intention istibaha, we spoke about the intention of istibaha, you need to make prayers valid. If that intention istibaha is for fard prayers, and you can perform the sunnah and sujud syukur or tilawah. But if you make intention for sunnah prayers, then you can only perform sunnah prayers and the one that is below it. So this it depends on what is the intention that you do. So this is important in tayammum. Whenever you do tayammum, we have to take into consideration on what we intend for the tayammum. So this is different from ablution. Ablution we do not differentiate whether you are going to pray fard prayers or sunnah prayers with the ablution. So ablution is a strong form of purification, whereas tayammum is a weak form of purification. It takes the place of wudu due to necessity and emergency. So that is why it is a weak form of tayammum. So it requires that you do tayammum when the time enters, the time of prayers enters, and you have already found the qibla, and you have confirmed that you got no water. For example, for those who are doing tayammum because of availability of water. So there are many conditions when it comes to tayammum different from ablution. So we mentioned the integrals. So number 1 is the transporting of dust. So it is wajib that when a person does tayammum, the dust has to be transported from his hand to the face. So there can be no tayammum if you just depend on the wind that blows into your face. So there must be a transfer of dust. This is point number 1, because basically in the Quran Allah said fatayammamu sa'idan tayyiba. Because of this particular verse, and in the meaning of tayammum in the Quran, it means that you intend to use. So there must be a level of transfer of the dust into your face. Number 2 is the intention. We spoke about this. That's what I mentioned earlier. And then what you call it, there is a thing that is called istidama. If you look here in Muqaddimah Hadramiyah, the author mentioned wastidamatuha ila masi wajhi. The intention must be continuous, and after you tap and you make the intention, then all the way when the dust touches your face, the intention must be present. In Arabic we call it istidamatun niyyah. Istidamatun niyyah, from the time when you tap to the time when the dust touches your face, the intention must be present. So this is the thing also that we have to take note. These are minor things that if a person does not study you might not be able to understand. That is why learning this kind of knowledge is wajib. But a lot of people sadly are confident for me to say they do not know much about some of this condition. We also spoke about the dust that is being used. The dust cannot be mixed with other things. It must be pure dust. From soil. In our mother Imam Shafi, remember this. It must be from soil. The dust that comes from soil that is not mixed. Nowadays there are people selling outside in the market. They call it the tayammum dust, but it's mixed. It is mixed. All these things we have to be careful. People can sell whatever they want, but as a student of knowledge, when you understand the rulings in Islam, you can differentiate between what is wrong and what is right. Even 1,000 people tells you to use this particular thing, but it's not correct because of the knowledge you have. So this is the thing in your jama'ah, and it is important for us to seek knowledge so that we can differentiate what is true and what is false, because all this has implication on ibadah. At the end of the day, our ibadah will not be valid, and we cannot blame others except ourselves. We cannot say Allah, I'm jahil I do not know. This form of ignorance is not excuse, because you have the ability to learn but you fail to seek knowledge. And nowadays Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make it easy and for everyone and to seek knowledge. Even if a person lives in the mountains far away and from the ulama nowadays, and because of the internet access, and people can access lessons, and for example in deen, people can learn about Islam, and even though there are no ulama in his town, and because of the availability of what you call it, all this online learning and so on and so forth. This is part of seeking knowledge. So nowadays any rulings change. Last time our ulama speaks about that it is excused that if a person live in the jungle, for example, or live in the mountain where there is no ulama, if he is ignorant, then he is excused. But nowadays we cannot say that. If he has accessibility to the internet, for example, and he can seek knowledge, and for example at a certain extent, it becomes wajib upon him based on darurah. Ala kulli hal, what I'm trying to say is the importance of us seeking knowledge properly, using the proper kitab. This is what we are trying to do, and trying to tell people about the importance of us learning fiqh with the proper manhaj, with the proper kitab, with the proper methodology. Likewise when learning aqidah, likewise when learning tasawwuf, so that we can save ourselves from ignorance that will lead to serious issues, or issues that will entail that our ibadah are not valid. Na'udzubillah min dhalik. Taib. Number 2, as what we mentioned, is intention. Number 3 is wiping of the face. So it is the same boundaries as what we mentioned in wudu. So we have to make sure that the dust reaches all parts of the face. Now this is point number 2. Number 3 is the hands, including the elbows, from the tip of the finger all the way up to the including the elbows. It is the same as what we mentioned in ablution. Although in tayammum there is an opinion that says that it's up to the wrists, but it is better to play safe that we perform all the way to the to the elbows. And then number 5 is sequence. Sequence basically you have to start off with your face before your hands. So these are basically the 5 things. I think easy, I don't think there is any problems. We have mentioned this. I don't think there is a need for me to repeat again. A lot of these things are basically straightforward. Only the thing about the intention, you need some time to digest maybe for some of you, and also a few things when it comes to the word istidama, all these things. We have to revise now. So you can listen to last week recordings, and we have our YouTube, Masjid Khalid YouTube. What I do is I put it in a playlist for easy access, so you can see the playlist of Muqaddimah Hadramiyah. Then inshallah all the past lessons will be there from the beginning of July, and you can access those lessons. And for those who are listening, if you have any questions, I'm at the Masjid Khalid, and you can come into the masjid and you can ask. If you are following, for example, the recordings, even if you are not following live, if you have any questions, if you are living in Singapore, for example, you can come into the masjid. You can ask me, or you can, wallahu alam, you can call it in the masjid also. If you have any questions on the lessons that I conduct, if you do not understand certain things, I can make some time for that, because at the end of the day, what we want is to attain any benefit for ourselves, and to benefit from others, inshallah. So after he spoke about the integrals of tayammum, he goes on to speak about the sunnah acts, the recommended acts here, meaning the sunnahs of tayammum. So he said, wa sunanuhu at-tasmiyah. Number 1, when we want to perform in the tayammum, sunnah to recite the basmalah, that is Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. And likewise in wudu also we spoke about Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. So when we start to tap the dust, and we say Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, then we intend for the tayammum. Wa taqdimul yumna, it is a sunnah to start off with the right. For example, if you want to wipe your hands, it is a sunnah to wipe the right hands, and then we wipe the left, just like in wudu. Wa masu a'la wajhihi, to start with on top of the face, just like in wudu also, to start washing the top part of the top part of the head. Wa takhfiful ghubar. Takhfiful ghubar meaning when you tap the dust, sometimes, most probably, there will be some particles and small stones, for example, some sand. So those are not in need any for tayammum. So what is a sunnah for us to do is to do this any, so that any small particles any will drop off. What we want any is the dust any from the soil. So when we take any dry soil, the soil any has to be dry. So when we take any dry soil and you tap any on the soil, there will be dust any that will stick any to your hand. So there will be dust any that stick to your hand. So when it comes to tayammum, remember this, and we are speaking any about the dust that comes any from the soil. The dust any that comes any from the soil. This is a madhab of Imam Shafi, prevailing judgment any in the madhab of Imam Shafi. So whenever any we speak any about tayammum, we are speaking any about the dust any that comes any from the soil. And nowadays you can buy dust tayammum, but it's just that you have to be careful any that they don't mix any with something else. It must be pure. It must be pure dust. So if a person, for example, is afflicted now with some sort of injury and there is bandage and so on, so the thing is, always have dust with you. Don't be like people, for example, every time you want to pray and you have to find any for dust. We are living in a country where it's difficult to find dust in reality. If you live in places like in Yemen, you got no problem, or in Saudi, for example, there are dust everywhere, because basically the place is a desert place, full of dust, full of all this dry soil and all these things. But we are living in a country where even the grass that is filled with fertilizers and all these things, it is mixed with a lot of things. So sometimes it becomes then difficult for us that we have to do taqlid to the mazhab Imam Hanafi, for example, on certain issues. So I always advise for those who ask, for example, I got a bandage, and for example, those who are using any bandage and you want to take ablution, and for example, then always make sure that you have dust with you, because you are in need of two things, and you are in need of wudu and you are in need of tayammum, and it is wajib, and it is not something that is sunnah. So when we do our tayammum, and it is a sunnah takhfiful ghubar, as what in the author he mentioned, you need to lessen the dust. Wal muwala, and it is sunnah to have muwala, meaning after you wipe your face, straight away one tap again and wipe your hands. So muwala is sunnah, just like in wudu. Wa tafriqul asabi', wa tafriqul asabi', meaning when we open up our when you tap the dust, you open up so that in between the hands, the hands the dust can reach out. So different if you beat the dust like this, so the gaps will not be filled with dust. And the thing about dust, when you tap it it goes up, correct or not? So at least the other parts will be covered. So it is more encompassing in a sense. Wa tafriqul asabi in the darbi wa naz'ul khatam. It is a sunnah to remove our ring. If a person is wearing a ring, it is a sunnah for us to remove our ring for the first tab. For the first tab, because first tab we are wiping our face. So if you are wearing a ring, sunnah for you to remove. But for the second tab, which is for the hands, it is wajib for you to remove. This is what the author is saying. He said, wa nazul khatam wa yajibu nazu fi darbati thaniya. For the second tab, he said, and for the second tab, it is obligatory to remove at the second tab. Why? Because the second tab is specifically for the hands. If you are wearing a ring, you are preventing dust from entering what is below the ring. Naam. Then he mentioned wa min sunanihi, and from the sunnahs of tayammum, imrarul yadi ala al-udwi, that we use the dust and we rub our bodies. That we rub all parts of the face and all parts of the hands. Wa mashul adud, and likewise we wipe all the way up into our arms. This is just like in wudu, for example, in order for us to encompass the whole hand, we wash all the way up to the half of the arms, just to play safe. And also this part of sunnah, to increase the boundaries. So likewise in tayammum, also it is a sunnah for us to wipe our body parts when we are doing tayammum, and likewise all the way up to the arms. Wa adamu takrar, and not to do it more than one time. So one tap and is for the face, one tap and is for the hands. Some people and might have this understanding that since any wudu three times we wash our face, 3 times and we wash our hands, so they do qiyas, yani tayammum also 3 times and for the face, 3 times for the hands. No, sunnah yani what is wajib, point number 1, what is wajib, and it is 1 tap any for the face, 1 tap any for the hands, and it is a sunnah to do just once, not yani sunnah yani to do yani more than once. And because the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he do it yani 1 time, so based on ittiba, yani following yani the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Wal istiqbal yani facing yani the qibla when we are doing tayammum, sunnah wa shahada ba'dahu, and to recite any the shahada, and likewise any the dua after we recite after wudu, and inclusive any of asyhadu an la ilaha illallah wa asyhadu anna muhammadar rasulullah, and making salawat upon the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam any after that. Allahumma ja'alni minat tawwabin wa ja'alni minal mutatahhirin wa ja'alni min ibadika salihin. Subhanakallahumma wa bihamdika asyhadu an la ilaha illa anta asyhadu an la ilaha illallah asyhadu anna muhammadar rasulullah sallallahu ala sayyidina muhammadin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wasallam. And then he mentioned وَمَنْ لَمْ يَجِدْ مَاءً وَلَا تُرَابًا صَلَّى الْفَرْضَ وَحْدَهُ وَعَادَ بِالْمَاءِ. Those any who cannot find water and dust, he pray any without water and dust. Yani he pray, but wajib any upon him to repeat the prayer. This is called i'adah. This is called faqid tahurain. Those any who does not possess water and dust. Yani this can be imagined, and if a person is in prison, for example, if a person is in prison and he does not have access any to water, for example, or clean water or pure water, then in this any situation, any he can perform prayers any without water and dust. But of course, any some people might argue we can follow any the madhab of Imam Abu Hanifa, and he can tap any on the walls. Yes, that can be done any in emergency cases. But if any there is a situation where you cannot find dust at all, you cannot find any dust any at all, no water at all, then any a person any has to repeat any the prayer. So alhamdulillah, yani by this and we have completed the chapter of tayammum. So now any inshallah ta'ala we will enter into the chapter of menstruation, postnatal bleeding and istihadah. So without wasting any time, we still have time before Isha, I will continue in this chapter. Yani the author mentioned faslun wa aqallul haidi yawmun wa laylatun wa aktsaruhu 15 yawman bilayaliha wa ghalibuhu sittun aw sab'un. The author began this chapter of menstruation by speaking about the minimum and the maximum number of days. How do we understand what is the minimum menstruation? In order for us to call it menstruation, there is a minimum number of days, that is 24 hours, and basically one day that is man is 24 hours. So if a woman, for example, she said I saw blood for 2 hours, and then after that it disappears, yani there is no more blood, there is no more blood, so we say that this is not any menstruation, yani this is not menstruation, unless if the blood of course comes back after comes back, then of course we take into consideration the blood that comes again. Because there are people, for example, first day, for example, they saw blood for 2 hours. Then the next day they saw blood for they saw blood for period of 5 hours, for example. So we have to look if this continues for example, and if when we collect the number of hours it reaches 24 hours, then it is considered to be menstruation, and it must be within 15 days. It must be within 15 days. As what is mentioned by the author, the maximum number of days is 15 days. Anything that is more than 15 days, inshallah later, maybe next week, I think we will speak about another thing that is called the istihadah. That is a chronic vaginal discharge, that have some rulings. But here now we are just speaking about the minimum and maximum. So minimum is 24 hours, maximum is 15 days. وَغَالِبُهُ سِتٌ أَوْ سَبْعٌ. Most cases, women who are having menses 6 days or 7 days. So anything that is less than 24 hours is not considered to be menstruation. Now it is considered to be normal bleeding, or it can be considered to be istihadah, chronic, a kind of sickness where the vagina yani bleeds, it is not considered to be any menstruation. But normally women and they know their norm. They know their norm that every month, for example, the first week or the second week or the third week. So when the blood comes and straight away, and they know that this is menstruation and the blood and based on their experience. So it is considered to be menses. They can straight away consider it to be menses, and if what you call it, they understood that it is a norm. But it is different. And for example, if a girl, for example, first time who never experienced any menses and suddenly saw blood, so we have to wait, correct or not? And we have to wait because there is a possibility that it is menses, there is possibility it is not menses, and she has to be at least 9 years of age. Anything that is below 9 years, and for example a girl who is 7 years, this is not any menstruation, because the minimum is, our ulama mentioned, is 9 years qamariya, based on the Islamic calendar. This is what he mentioned after this. Wa waqtuhu ba'da tis'i sinin. Wa waqtuhu ba'da tis'i sinin. That's what I mentioned. What you call it? It is at least she must be 9 years of age, and 9 years of age based on the Islamic calendar and not based on the Gregorian calendar. So always remind what you call, always we have to understand this concept. Every ruling in Islam, remember this, every ruling in Islam, when there is a connection with time, what is meant is time based on Islamic calendar. So whenever you talk about nisab in zakah, you talk about fasting in the month of Ramadan, all these rulings in Islam has connection with the Islamic calendar. So when the ulama mention 9 years, what they meant is 9 years Islamic calendar. So that is why it is important for us to understand when we our birthday, for example, see some Muslims they don't even know what is the date of their birthday in the Islamic calendar. For example, a person the birthday, for example, 2nd of February of a particular year. When it comes to the Gregorian calendar, everybody understand. But what about the Islamic calendar? How old are you based on the Islamic calendar? And if you ask any random teenagers or our youths today about the Islamic calendar, you will find many of them they don't even aware about what is the Islamic calendar, because a lot of us we are not exposed. So it is important as Muslims to be exposed to the Islamic calendar. This is important, especially when we study fiqh. We have to take into consideration about our age when what you call based on the Islamic calendar. Likewise, when it comes to zakah, our hawl and nisab, we have to base on the Islamic calendar and not on the Gregorian calendar, because there is a difference. Between the Islamic calendar and the Gregorian calendar. وَأَقَلُّ طُهْرِ بَيْنَ الْحَيْضَتَيْنِ 15 يَوْمًا بِلَيَالِيهَا. This is important for us to take note when we study the chapter of Hayd, that the minimum number of clean days must be 15 days. 15 complete days, and bilayaliha. So meaning 24 hours and you times 15. That's the number of hours that you get. So there must be a minimum of 15 days in between. So for example, if a lady says that I saw blood for 3 days, and then after 16 days the blood stopped, but after 16 days the blood came back. So now we understand that this is a different cycle of menses. So the first 3 days is menses. The after 16 days of clean days is also considered to be menses, even it happens in the same month. So this is the thing I want to explain properly, because I receive any questions from some Muslimas pertaining to this, and I feel it is important for people for women to understand this properly, because there are some people who thought that menses must only be once in a month. It is not necessary that it must be once in a month. Some women, they have 2 menses in a month. How can that be? So let me give you an example. For example, they saw blood for 2 days, the first 2 days of the month. For example, in the month of Zulhijjah, for example, the first 2 days they saw blood. Tamam? Or 3 days or 4 days, let's say 4 days, they saw blood. And then the blood stopped. How many days does the blood stop? 15 days, for example. 15 days. Khalas, we say 15 days, it is the minimum minimum clean days and that is required in order for us to ascertain that the next blood that comes and after that is menses. So now first 4 days and she saw blood, and then 15 days and no blood, and then after that 15 days and she saw blood again. So now you imagine the first 4 days and she saw blood, and then you plus 15 and how many you get? You get 19. So on the day 20 of Zulhijjah of that month, she saw blood again. This blood is menses. This blood in menses, and I've met any people, for example, they thought that this is istihada, because they thought that what you call it, in a man it is impossible that a woman experience two menses. Some women experience two menses, but most women do not experience two menses. So if she saw blood on the 20th, meaning this is the second menses in the month. It is menses and it is not istihada. Remember this. So that is why it is important to understand about these 15 days. The clean days in between the blood must be minimum 15 days in order for us to ascertain that the blood that comes after 15 days is considered to be menses. But if it is less than 15 days, then it is a different ruling. For example, if a woman, for example, she said that I saw blood for the first 4 days, and then for 10 days no blood, 10 days clean, and then after that 10 days for 1 day I saw blood. So now altogether how many days? 4 plus 10 the clean days will go 14, and then 1 day again you get 15. So this is within the 15 days. We say all of this is menses. Yani from the first day all the way until the 15th day is considered to be menses, including the clean days, and is considered to be the days of menses. And if she performs the prayers will not be valid. If she is fasting, then the fasting will not be valid, and she has to make up for the fasting, because it turned out that what she thought is not menses and turned out to be menses, and because everything happens within 15 days, and the clean days between the two blood that comes out is less than 15 days. It is only 10 days. So we consider to be the same blood, meaning the blood that comes out in 4 days and the blood that came out in the day 15, it is the same cycle of menses. And remember this, it is the same cycle of menses, because it is within 15 days. So I hope it is clear, inshallah ta'ala. So if a woman sees blood less than 24 hours, as what we mentioned, it is not any menses. It is not considered to be any menses. But as what I mentioned, and this is also thing we have to understand. If she saw blood every day 3 hours, and for 10 days, you gather the amount of hours and how many hours you get? 3 hours per day. How many hours you get? You get 30 hours. So 30 hours is more than 24 hours. So this is considered to be menses. So it doesn't mean that 24 hours that she must have blood for 24 hours without any stop. Some people thought that is the case. That is not the case. That is not the case. What is important is that within that 15 days, the number of hours of blood must at least exceed 24 hours in order for us to ascertain that it is considered to be menses. And as what I mentioned, for those who have norms in their, or usually they experience menses, they will know that their menses come out in the first day of the month, for example. So once they saw blood automatically they do not perform any prayers, no problem, because they know that this is menses, even though they see for 2 hours or 3 hours, because they know that it is a norm, that every day is about 3 hours. But after that, it will continue for 10 days or continue for 12 days, for example. So different people have different what you call it, subhanallah, this is the qudra of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Different women have different experience, and when comes into the how the blood came out, and how many hours it came out, and the nature of the blood and the color of the blood. So different women experience different women experience different thing. There are women for example every month has istihada. This saw blood for example more than 20 days for every month, mashallah, this is confirmed, and we say this is partially it is menses and partially it is chronic vaginal discharge, and that is a different set of ruling, in that inshallah ta'ala we will speak about in the next week, inshallah. So I hope it is clear, inshallah. I do not know if there is any question, you can type in your question at the of our YouTube channel. Wallahu alam, if you have any question. If not, I will stop here. let me see. There's a bit of time left. So the author is saying, وَيَحْكُمُ بِهِ مَا يَحْكُمُ بِالْجَنَابَةِ, and when comes to the things that is prohibited for a woman who is experiencing any menses, there are 10 things. I think I mentioned this last time. And it is inclusive of the things that are prohibited for those who are in major ritual impurity. There are 6 things, if you can remember. Please refer to Safinatun Najah. If you have Safinatun Najah, easy for you to refer to. Altogether, you have 10 things for the one who is under menstruation, and 6 things the one who is under janaba. وَمُرُوءُ الْمَسْجِدِ إِنْ خَافَ تَلْوِيثَهُ, part of the 10 is that is haram for her to pass by the mosque if she fears that she might dirty the mosque. If a lady, for example, she has experiencing heavy menstruation and she doesn't have a proper what you call it thing to prevent the blood from flowing for example, and she fears that she might dirty the mosque, and it's haram for her to enter into the mosque. But if she is confident that she will not dirty the mosque, then she can enter from one door and exit another door. This is called muru'ul masjid. But what is prohibited for her is al-mukus, to be inside the masjid with the intention of staying inside the masjid. Was-sawmu, it is not permissible for her to fast, and it's haram for the husband to incur talaq, to incur any talaq towards her if she is in menstruation in fiqh munakahat, and we call it talaq bid'i. For those who study miftah for example, it is part of talaq bid'i, based on bid'ah, because it is haram in Islam that a husband divorce the wife while the wife is in menstruation, or the wife is in the clean days where he has perform sexual intercourse with her. Wal istimta'u bima bayna surati wa rukbah, to have any intimacy, anything that is between the navel and the knees. So it is not permissible for the husband to touch anything in between the navel and the knees, and likewise it is not permissible for the wife to touch the husband with the knees, and with anything that is between the navel and the knees. So it is for both. Wa yajibu alayha qada'u sawm duna as-salah, it is wajib for her to make up for fasting but not any prayers. Wallahu alam bis-sawab. Inshallah next week we enter into speaking about istihada. ربنا تقبل دعانا إنك أنت السميع العليم وتب علينا إنك أنت التواب الرحيم واختم بصالحات أعمالنا وأجرنا الله يا كريم بفضل سبحان ربك بالعزة عما يصفون وسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين.